Hello, this is Kevin Scanlon with All City Real Estate. I had an interesting question from one of my agents a couple of days ago. She called me and asked me about the difference between the protection afforded to a buyer via the Third Party Financing Addendum and the new Appraisal Addendum that TREC came out with last year, and how those two documents mesh together. And I thought it was an interesting question, and when I did a little more digging with some of my other agents, they too had a little bit of a question about what exactly was the dynamic between those two documents. So we're going to talk about it and spell it out for you right now. Before we do that, I want to remind you that here at All City Real Estate, we are big believers in a collaborative agent world, a world where information and knowledge can cross over broker boundaries, such that we're that fiduciary for our clients at the highest possible level. And that's why we create these videos for you. Anyway, we're going to boil it down this way. The Third Party Financing Addendum protects the buyer in the two worlds that exist independent from one another in the universe of underwriting, loan underwriting. Those worlds are the ability of the buyer to purchase the property in the lender's eyes, the buyer's approval, and the property's worthiness of that loan in the lender's eyes, the property approval. Those two worlds are completely separate in the world of underwriting, and they're also separate on the third-party financing addendum. So as you know, you put down the terms of your buyer's potential loan. Let's say in this case a conventional loan for X number of dollars for a 30-year fixed, and the underwriting process occurs and that buyer is vetted and let's say eventually approved for that loan. Completely separate from that, including separate from the buyer approval timeline, the number of days that is negotiated and filled out on that buyer approval section of the third-party financing addendum, the property approval section is separate from that and has no timeline other than the caveat that that property approval, if it is not met, the buyer has up until 3 days prior to closing to terminate the contract and receive their earnest money back. Now, as we all know, property approval, the denial of that approval is 9 times out of 10 because of a low appraisal. And in our market here in the state of Texas, pretty much across the board, it's been very strong for the last few years, and in multiple offer situations, we often see that list price getting ratcheted up with 5, 10, 20 offers on the table, going tens of thousands of dollars over that list price. That's where we start getting into a sticky territory with respect to appraisals coming in low. So this is where the appraisal addendum comes in and is a very handy tool, not just for buyers, but it can also be a handy tool for sellers to help vet which of those multiple offers that they're considering is the strongest as it appears, and then perhaps even having their agent fill out an appraisal addendum for their counter back to the offer that they choose to work with. So here's how that appraisal addendum works. The first option on the appraisal addendum basically says that the buyer is willing to waive that property approval caveat on the third-party financing addendum and waive their right to terminate based on a low appraisal, no matter how far below the agreed upon sale price that appraisal comes in. In other words, they're saying no matter how low, even if it's $50,000 less than the agreed upon sale price, we will agree to bring any dollar amount to the table to satisfy that lender and to qualify that property for the loan in the lender's eyes. Now that's a risky one. So your client has to A, have enough money to cover any amount that appraisal comes in low, and they have to really want the property badly to stick their necks out like that. The most commonly used option is option 2 on the appraisal addendum, whereby the buyer puts an amount in section 2 of that appraisal addendum that says, if the property appraises for X number of dollars or more, it's a low appraisal below the sale price, but if it appraises for X dollars or more, I will make up the difference and I waive that property approval right to terminate. However, if it comes in $1 below that, any amount below that dollar amount that is put in that blank, they can terminate if they like. They don't have to. They can still do a negotiation for the difference with the seller. But that's the most commonly used one, and you can see that the difference between third-party financing addendum and the appraisal addendum is that the third-party financing addendum offers the protection from a low appraisal, saying that even if it comes in a penny below the sale price, if that appraisal comes in low, you can terminate and get your earnest money back. But the appraisal addendum trumps that right for the dollar amount specified if you're using box number 2. Now, box number 3 is a little bit of a unique thing, but I'll sum it up quickly like this. If the property does not appraise for the sale price, but it still meets the underwriter's approval. Let's say the buyer's putting down 50% and it only appraises for $2,000 less than the sale price. Oftentimes the lender's going to go ahead and put the property approval in there. Well, option 3 is for cases like that where the buyer says, I'm willing to bring some money to the table, but if it comes below X number of dollars, and that's the amount you put in box 3, then I'm still going to retain my right to terminate. I'm going to show you the seller that appraisal and where it came in at, and I can terminate using that. So that's the gist of it. I know it sounds complex, but if you really take the time, take half an hour and read through that thing sentence by sentence, it really becomes more clear in your mind. So as always, if you have questions, visit with your broker. You can always call the TAR hotline, or if push comes to shove, you're always welcome to call me on my mobile phone at 512-775-3846. You can call or text me there. Obviously, you can also email me, kevin@allcityagents.com. I wish you the best of luck with this year, and I hope to hear from you soon. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.